Get ready for a rag on cryptocurrency. In this little project I hope to call, Saving Canada by Saving the World, I dove into the forms money took before its current form as fiat. I didn't talk much about bubbles and investing. So, it's about time. In this little segment before I talk about age demographics and the economic downturn in 2023, I want to mention the whale that is crypto that most likely will go down with the ship. At first, I couldn't make much of crypto, like what the fuck is it? It's not money, it's not a stock. What's its purpose? Over time, I came to realize that crypto is a bubble that's going to burst just like how tulips did. Of course, there will be people who make a lot of money off it before it crashes. But not many. The only people who make money off crypto are scam artists and malevolent heads of state who hope to destroy the value of Western capital. Luckily, the people at the top of our government aren't so stupid. There are people at the bottom, however, who are complete idiots. There is a movement of people who seem to believe that it's a great idea to store your money in a place the government cannot reach. It's being propagated by the extreme woke, QAnon meets Pizzagate meets MAGA leaders. It's an odd combination, I know. In a future segment, I'll explain how those two groups share a lot of similarities. Crypto isn't money, it's not the future, it's not even futuristic. Its concept harks back to the past when money was pegged to solid assets like gold. Certain people seem to believe that all money will be a type of crypto one day. Absolutely not. Your government will probably create something that resembles it, just to keep idiots from starting a fire at their local TD or something. However, it will not be crypto. Money is fiat specifically to be fluid, specifically to enable massive printing of money when needed in economic crisis. If your money is pegged to gold or the mined material needed to make processors, you're setting yourself up for a disaster like 1929. Crypto was never meant to be that, however, and it won't be, thank God. Age demographics and the economic collapse of 2023. All my life I've been told that I won't be able to retire. It was a rhetoric that constantly came up in casual conversation, that had always brought on nervous laughter. The reason was never clear, however. Most of the time, it was said that people were living too long and that's why they'll raise the retirement age. A couple of years ago, I started to dive into the topic. It became clear to me that the boomers were a huge generation. I never thought of generations being big or small, or the causes and effects of such variances. One lesson I learned was the pressure generational change puts on wages. When the boomers came of age to work, there was so many of them competing for jobs that employers basically didn't have to raise wages. There was another young whippersnapper ready for work at the door. 40 years later, all those boomers are retiring. The thing is, the generation coming up isn't as large as the boomers. Have you watched the news lately? Does worker shortage come up ever? In my news cycle, it's slowly becoming the main event. All across the board occupations are speaking of worker shortages. It's because the boomers are retiring and leaving a cavernous hole. Currently, in 2022 Canada is around 40,000 working age adults short. By 2026, it's estimated that shortage will rise to 600,000. That's immense. Now, the pressure of worker shortages are opposite to when there's a worker surplus. Employers now have to start catering to the employees' needs. Wages and benefits will start to rise across the board. The problem is this is highly inflationary. If wages go up, prices go up, it can lead to an upward spiral called hyperinflation. Luckily we live in a part of the world where the leadership isn't brain dead. They know about this phenomenon. As well as wage hikes, we will soon hear about wage freezes. I won't be surprised if there were to be a general wage freeze similar to what happened in the Pierre Trudeau era. Weird. This sounds great for the regular blue-collar worker. Another effect of worker shortages is productivity decreases. The less people work, the less work has been done. The less things there are to do or buy. It's a cascading event. If you still believe that trickle-down economics isn't real, I can't help you, no one can. Anyhow, what I'm saying is, a substantial and incremental decrease in economic activity perpetuates further decreases. On top of that, the Canadian Central Bank is likely to follow suit with the United States Federal Reserve in hiking interest rates. This will lead to a recession. Not only was there going to be a recession anyway because of demographics, the COVID-19 expenditure and boomers cashing in their retirement savings is forcing central banks to raise interest rates. This promotes further decreases in economic growth. I understand why it's necessary. Lest we want to eat our cats. Trouble is this will cause businesses barely getting by to shut. As well, this will cause homeowners barely keeping up with their mortgage to sell. All this adds up to further economic decline. It seems like it will be a big one. There is a silver lining, however. Crypto will probably cease to exist. As well, perhaps the cannabis shops that seem to have been sprinkled all over Toronto will begin to shut. I'm not sure so many of them are needed. If they don't seem to diminish in number, we might begin to ask at least a couple questions. Is business that good, or are they running meth and fentanyl on the DL? I guess that's my personal opinion. Anyhow, boomers are retiring, taking with them their high productivity, risky asset investments, and TFSA portfolios. Crypto is the first to go. We are already seeing the pressure on crypto. I'll speak more about interest rates and TFSAs later. What's more, I won't hear so much from the woke and QAnon followers. Their worldview is about to explode in their face, I think. Also, it's not as bad as what Europe has in store. In 5 years, Canada will have a deficit of 600,000 working-age adults. That's 2% of its working-age population. In that same time, Europe will have a deficit of 30 million working-age adults. A factor of 6% of its working-age population. Additionally, they have their own particular set of needs that aren't being met. European energy supplies are being threatened because oil has basically stopped coming from Russia. There isn't enough to go around. Someone cute may decide to take what they need from a weaker country that doesn't want to give up the goods. Survival is a scary thing when it's being threatened. Even if the war in Ukraine doesn't expand further, there will be another geopolitical crisis. What this means is political stability is always a fear. This pushes people away from Europe. Additionally, the open xenophobia in many parts of Europe keeps people from entering. In contrast, Canada has implemented such a large degree of inward migration, it's almost symbiotic. In my view, all Canada has to do is double down in their immigration efforts to fill the demographic gaps. There are so many places to choose from. Sudan, Somalia, Congo, Ethiopia, Europe in general, Central America, the Caribbean, many parts of Asia including Afghanistan, Pakistan, and China. All these places are either facing geopolitical stress, food insecurity, housing insecurity, or a combination of all three. If I were in power, I would start a government task force that flies into humanitarian disasters to help the vulnerable, and to actively promote immigration into Canada. We're already seen as a comforting arm to the world. Why not open it further by helping vulnerable populations leave their precarious situations? We in turn will be helping Canada become a stronger nation. A quick note on the Great Depression. Most of the readers or listeners of this essay series know about the Great Depression that started in 1929. It ran all the way up to the start of World War II in North America. The Depression lasted in Europe until the early 50s. It was a great time of misery and unemployment for only 24.9% of the population. That's a lot, but that leaves the rest humming away at their job. 75.1% of people who were looking for work found it. I want to take a little time before I start this chapter in earnest to go over the mega projects that were taken on during this period. The Hoover Dam started construction in 1931 and finished in 1936. Its construction period was during the Great Depression's peak. Isn't that odd? A time we're told that there was great misery, there was also a marvel of science being built at great expense. The Golden Gate Bridge started construction in 1933 and was completed in 1937. Again, another marvel of technological excellence created at a time when we thought no one had a job and everyone was poor. So not to be accused of being biased towards America. A European construction project of note was the Palace of the League of Nations. It was completed in 1938. Not to mention the post-war rebuild was a monumental task, but it was done. So not to be biased toward Europe. The Canadian Bank of Commerce building was completed in 1931. My final example is the Ambassador Bridge between Windsor and Detroit. It was completed 1 month after the Great Depression started. My point in these examples are to show even though there may be an economic downturn, great works can be completed. In my view, the best times to take on such tasks would be during economic strife. The best works would be those that better the life of the populace during and after completion. Needed infrastructure is always a good bet. Creating the largest condo complexes in the world. Have you watched the movie Skyscraper with The Rock? Sadly, my concept isn't as extravagant as the tower in that movie. But if my vision follows through, the structure I hope to sign off on will do more than leave a massive dent on the housing crisis as well. I hope to make more than one of these things. I think it would be practical to have a few of them spread out across Canada. Okay, with fear of sounding absolutely insane, I'm going to start. I want the superstructure to be bigger than the Burj Khalifa. Not only do I propose a much larger structure, I want the sole purpose of the structure to be focused on housing middle-class families, as many as possible. I want the capacity of each of these towers to be upwards of 6,000 residents with comfort. It won't do to build a massive tower to have the residents struggling to get by, and have little room to breathe and grow. I want these structures to be for families, for everyday working people. How would I go about regulating that? I guess similar to how the Toronto Community Housing Corporation does it. There would have to be a salary threshold that limits availability. Perhaps instead of completely barring wealthy people from purchasing units, priority would be given to middle-income families and retirees. But there is a worker shortage. I know, that's why I propose bringing in migrant labor, not just migrant labor, but working-age people who are looking for a better life. I want this construction project to be the golden ticket for people beyond Canada's borders who find it difficult to leave their own situations. In a coordinated effort with the task force I mentioned in the last chapter, I would have working-age peoples from across the globe scouted to be Canadian newcomers. Just like for the construction of the Hoover Dam when Chinese came to America in droves, people from across the globe would be sought after to help build what Canada needs, for those arriving and those already here. But there is a housing shortage. Where will these newcomers live? That's a good question. One that I put some thought to. What I would propose is, these applicants for the job would build their homes first before starting construction on the main building. I hope I don't sound like a broken record. It would work as a base camp similar to what Las Vegas was for the Hoover Dam. However, not so much like the Hoover Dam's base camp. It would be more of a town with roads, proper houses, markets, and amenities. There would be no tent business nor would there be widespread crime, death, or disease. So once the tower is complete, the workers could decide to stay in their homes they built, or move to a place more fitting to them. Will this be taking jobs from Canadians? No, Canadians of course will be getting first priority in applications. Anyone who would be interested in being a part of this construction project would be welcome to bring their skills and labor. As well as a fix to the housing crisis, these superstructures will stimulate the economy immensely. This would be just what the country needs in an economic downturn. Not only that, I want these structures to be visual marvels. I want tourists from across the planet to be taken aback by their beauty. A bump in tourism to views of the construction site alone would be expected. Now saying all this, you could expect that I have blueprints already at hand. I do not. If I'm elected Prime Minister in 2025, or some distant time in the future, I will be seeking out architects to solve this small dilemma I have. I think next chapter I'll be talking about how utterly deep the espionage artists and saboteurs have embedded themselves in our society. Fun. See you next time.